This is what happens when the school's resident unawakened punching bag finally talks back to the most aggressive bully on campus. The big guy is furious, ready to snap the black-haired man in half, but instead of cowering, the kid's hand starts crackling with yellow lightning as a system prompt drops. In the blink of an eye, he locks in a terrifying new job class, Electric Assassin, and his stats instantly max out. A bystander with glasses absolutely loses his mind, screaming to know when the weakest student suddenly awakened. Dripping with raw voltage, my guy just smirks and beckons the heavyweight forward with one finger. Completely unhinged, the bully activates his indestructible demon armor, morphing his arm into a massive, spiked boulder. He throws a catastrophic haymaker meant to take our hero's head clean off. But moving like a literal thunderbolt, Sai-Chen effortlessly dodges the strike and closes the gap in a flash, only to deliver a devastating lightning-laced punch straight to the jaw. So how did a bullied weakling suddenly unlock god-tier stats out of nowhere? Turns out, he's a regressor who was thrown 10 years into the past with his max-level abilities completely intact. And here's how his story actually started. We open in the year 2167, where the demon race has officially conquered the last inch of human territory. Amidst the burning, apocalyptic ruins, humanity's very last survivor is left bleeding out, pinned to a shattered stone pillar. That survivor is Sai-Chen, an SSS-Ranked lightning assassin who's barely clinging to life. Rewind to 7 years ago, when the Demon Kings first descended and brought humanity to its knees. Back in the present, Demon King Lun Yu stands victorious over the ruins, mocking our hero and calling his entire race pathetic, fragile trash. Ready to finish the job, the monster charges a crackling orb of red energy in his claw. The destructive power surges to its absolute peak. Then he lunges forward, declaring he's going to consume the assassin's flesh to fuel his own strength. With a roar, Lun Yu unleashes the devastating blast straight at his defenseless target. But as the crimson wave engulfs him, our guy refuses to just roll over and die, his own white lightning flaring up in defiance. The faces of his murdered sister, his fallen comrades, and his master flash back at him. Fueled by the loss of everyone he loved, a bloody smile creeps across his face as his power violently surges. His eyes go completely blank as he screams out a vow to drag this beast down to hell with him. And with that final breath, Sai-Chen activates his SSS ultimate skill, Terminus Arc, detonating a massive blinding sphere of yellow lightning that swallows them both whole. Caught dead in the center of the blast, Lun Yu realizes he's completely paralyzed by the crushing weight of the energy. But the toll of the ultimate skill is absolute, and our hero's own skin begins to crack and shatter from the sheer overload. As the light consumes him, a shard of memory surfaces, showing the rainy day he held his dying sister. Then the image of his fallen master's back flashes before him. And finally, he pictures his parents in a faded, sepia-toned memory, silently promising his family he'll see them all soon. As his physical form completely disintegrates into the whiteout, his only lingering regret is that he wasn't strong enough to save them. Beside him, the Demon King spits one last curse at the human race before he too is vaporized into nothingness. With the ruined city erased by the explosion, Sai-Chen's final thought is a desperate wish to go back in time and slaughter the very first Demon King before this nightmare ever started. His infinity necklace shatters into pieces, and everything fades to a blinding white. But instead of the afterlife, a sliver of fluorescent light pierces the darkness. Our boy slowly opens his eyes, staring blankly up at a tiled ceiling. He finds himself lying in a quiet infirmary bed, covered in fresh bandages and completely disoriented. But instead of the afterlife, our hero suddenly gasps for air, shooting up in bed with the shocking realization that he's still breathing. Glancing around the sterile, unfamiliar room, he tries to figure out where the hell he is. Pushing himself up, the confused survivor approaches a bright window to investigate, and what he sees outside completely shatters his reality, a peaceful, sunlit university campus, totally untouched by the apocalypse. Sweat beads down his face as he stares in pure bewilderment, wondering how all these people are still alive when his entire world was reduced to ash. Stumbling over to a mirror, he locks eyes with his younger reflection as the impossible truth finally sinks in. Our boy is a regressor, thrown exactly 10 years into the past, right back to his university days. Before he can even fully process it, a burst of static crackles in the air right in front of his face. A glowing system notification materializes out of nowhere, announcing that the power of gluttony has successfully integrated into his body. Checking the display, Sai-Chen confirms the exact date, May 16th, 2157. His eyes flash a dangerous red as the sheer weight of that timeline hits him. He knows exactly what's coming. He has a 3-year head start before the first Demon King, Wrath, descends to end the world. As his head clears, he pictures what will happen 3 years from now, in 2160, how Wrath, the very first Demon King, will tear open the gates of hell and let the rest of the horde pour through. He already knows that Monster will be the catalyst for the apocalypse, the exact reason he will lose absolutely everything. But staring down at his unscarred hands, the realization finally sets in. He's actually back, and this time, he has a chance to rewrite history. If he can just hunt down Wrath and kill him before those gates ever open, he can stop the end of the world before it even starts. With a new goal set, he finally turns his attention to the glowing blue interface that's been hovering in his vision since he woke up. The moment he focuses on it, a detailed status window expands outward, catching our guy completely off guard. It displays his name, Xiaozuo, and casually reveals that every single one of his base attributes is already maxed out at a flat 100. He stares at the screen, realizing this RPG-style system is entirely different from the raw awakened powers he relied on in his past life. Because in this world, awakening is basically a lottery. Only 1 in 10,000 people ever manage to unlock an elemental class. He remembers it clearly. Attending the elite National Awakener University without a shred of power has kept him at the absolute bottom of the food chain, serving as a prime target for the campus bullies. Back in the present, the pieces click together. That daily dose of abuse is exactly why he just woke up covered in bandages. But before he can dwell on his pathetic track record, a new, violently glitching window suddenly pops up in his face. It pulls up an archive file, displaying the exact stats and skill tree for a class called the Lightning Assassin. He remembers the year 2167, when that was exactly the class our hero wielded to become humanity's last standing powerhouse. Back in the present, a brand new Devourer card overwrites the screen, and the insane truth drops. He hasn't just awakened 3 years early, he's inherited every ounce of his endgame stats. Eager to test his limits, he hits the class switch, and instantly, raw electricity starts crackling across his fingertips. But before he can fully power up, the sharp click of the infirmary door cuts him off. In walks Ma Long, a certified E-rank flower chanter, and the only guy at this school who actually gives a damn about him. The kid practically trips over himself rushing to the bed, letting out a massive sigh of relief to see his buddy awake. Si Chen plays it cool, brushing off the concern while noting that his glowing system interface is completely invisible to anyone else. Meanwhile, his roommate is frantically inspecting his arm, totally mind-blown that the brutal beating Si Chen took yesterday hasn't left a single scratch. As the guy babbles on about superhuman recovery speeds, our boy just watches his college roommate with a quiet intensity. He already knows how this kid's story ends, tragically slaughtered on the 3rd day of the demon invasion, long before he ever had a chance to grow. Yet staring at his living, breathing friend right here and now, the sheer, impossible weight of his second chance finally settles into his bones. But that heavy moment is instantly shattered when Ma Long suddenly grabs him by the shoulders, remembering something huge. He practically shoves our boy out the infirmary door, frantically reminding him that tomorrow is their crucial graduation rank test. The two of them spill out onto the sunset-lit campus to head back to their dorm. Taking in the bustling crowd, Si Chen casually mentions how nice it is to see so many living people. A morbid little observation that thoroughly creeps his buddy out. Sweating bullets, the poor guy nervously suggests they just take a normal, non-creepy walk around the playground instead. As they stroll, our hero falls quiet again, the memory of losing absolutely everything anchoring him to his new reality. He can already picture exactly what's coming in the year 2167. If he just sits back and does nothing, that desolate, ruined future is going to swallow this peaceful world all over again. His eyes flash a dangerous red as he locks in his first goal. He has to grind his level up as fast as humanly possible. He pictures the only way for an awakener to do that in this era, slaughtering monsters inside the active demon lairs. He knows the catch is that those zones are strictly monopolized by the massive corporate guilds, leaving independent outsiders with zero chance of ever stepping foot inside. Pulling up his system window again, my guy stares at his flat 100 stats and wonders exactly where he falls on the government's official S to E ranking scale. After all, most of the kids on this campus are hard stuck at E rank, with only a handful of elite, guild-backed geniuses ever scraping their way up to D. Looking at his own level 1 status screen, our boy realizes he's completely off the charts compared to the rest of the student body. Glancing sideways at Ma Long, he playfully figures he's at least got his buddy beat by a mile. Except he doesn't even get to finish that thought before a basketball flies out of nowhere and violently smacks the poor guy right in the face. Ma Long hits the pavement hard, his glasses flying off as blood immediately starts pouring from his nose. Right on cue, a group of 4 intimidating students calls down from the nearby steps, clearly looking for trouble. The ringleader, a muscular meathead with a buzz cut, smirks down at them, openly mocking how fast the two of them recovered. Clutching his bleeding face, Ma Long freezes in absolute terror, realizing they just bumped into the exact same squad that beat them half to death yesterday. Instead of cowering, Si Chen just stands his ground, silently staring daggers up at the hostile crew. The buzz-cut bully doesn't even take the hint, turning to his white-haired lackey to brag about how resilient their favorite punching bags are. Staring down the hostile crew, Si Chen locks eyes with their muscular leader, and a dark memory bubbles straight to the surface. He remembers it clearly. The suffocating panic of being held underwater. Back then, the same bully and his lackeys had cornered him in a bathroom, forcefully shoving his head deep into a filled sink. His roommate Ma Long had desperately begged them to stop, but the ringleader just flashed a sadistic smile, claiming he was actually doing him a favor. He twisted his cruelty into a sick logic, insisting he was just trying to stimulate the unawakened kid into getting his powers. And the rest of the gang just laughed at his helpless flailing. When our boy finally passed out, they tossed him aside like a broken toy, entirely bored of their little game. Ma Long immediately rushed to his side, desperately trying to shake him awake. Coughing up lungfuls of water, Sai Chen had felt utterly powerless, wondering why they wouldn't just leave him alone. Except human malice is a bottomless pit. Hearing his victim speak, the bully had turned right back around with a wicked grin, more than ready for round 2. Back in the present, that exact same arrogant bully is lounging on the basketball court, throwing a tantrum about his missing drinks. And right on cue, Ma Long is already bowing like a panicked servant, stammering out apologies and ready to sprint to the store. But this time, Si Chen steps right in front of his friend, flat out declaring that the bullies are the ones who owe them an apology. The muscular bully just blinks, genuinely baffled by this sudden flash of spine from his favorite punching bag. Even Ma Long is sweating bullets, staring at our guy like he's lost his absolute mind. Annoyed by the delay, Gong Chung steps up, his arm glowing a sickly green as he activates his E-rank Flower Warrior class. In reality, the guy's a total coward who only throws his weight around because his older brother is the student council president. The bystanders instantly start whispering, openly mocking Sai Chen and his roommate as the two most useless losers in the entire school. Ignoring the peanut gallery, the bully just looms over his prey, his fist radiating hostile energy. He glares down at our hero, daring him to repeat his little rebellious speech. Unfazed, Si Chen looks him dead in the eye and tells him to never bother them again. Enraged by the sheer audacity, Gong Chung swings a massive, glowing punch straight down at his skull. But with a sharp crack, our boy catches the full-force blow with a single, casual hand. The sheer recoil sends the bully stumbling back, clutching his arm as agonizing pain shoots up the limb. Around them, the bystanders' jaws collectively hit the floor. They literally cannot process how the school's unawakened loser just swatted away a superpowered strike. Utterly humiliated, Gong Chung screams at him for daring to fight back. Sai Chen just smirks, deciding this meathead is the perfect crash test dummy for his new system. With a mere thought, he switches his active job to Electric Assassin, his body erupting in a blinding aura of yellow lightning as a wall of maxed out stats loads in. Watching his roommate turn into a human thunderbolt, Ma Long shrieks in absolute terror, demanding to know when he awakened. Crackling with high voltage energy, my guy casually beckons the bully to bring it on. Pushed past his breaking point, Gong Chung triggers his indestructible demon armor, transforming his arm into a massive, spiked boulder. He throws a devastating haymaker, putting all his weight into crushing his target into paste. Yet by tapping into his Flash God skill, Si Chen vanishes in a streak of yellow light, effortlessly slipping right past the attack, only to reappear right inside the brute's guard, burying a high-voltage fist straight into Gong Chung's face. The sheer kinetic force launches the bully backward, flipping his massive frame upside down like an absolute ragdoll. Watching the school's biggest tyrant get swatted away like a pesky fly sends the crowd into a shrieking meltdown. Spitting blood and teeth, Gong Chung struggles back to his feet, desperately accusing Si Chen of pulling a cheap sneak attack. He frantically barks at his lackeys to jump in and back him up, but the white-haired bully is completely paralyzed, stuttering in pure terror without moving a single muscle. Because right now our boy doesn't even look human. He's just a terrifying shadowy silhouette wreathed in crackling yellow lightning. Driven mad by the humiliation, Gong Chung launches himself high into the air, roaring as he brings his armored boulder fist down for a lethal strike. But my guy doesn't even flinch, casually catching the devastating drop attack with a single hand. Clamping onto the bully's wrist like an industrial vice, he winds up his own glowing counterhook while totally ignoring Gong Chung's agonizing screams. Staring dead into those fearful eyes, Si Chen coldly delivers the final verdict. He's just too weak. And with that, he unleashes a savage, lightning-infused punch straight into the tyrant's gut, blowing him away in a huge explosion of blood and energy. The monstrous impact sends the brute flying through the air, trailing a vicious shockwave of electricity. He slams violently into the concrete bleachers, kicking up a thick cloud of dust and debris. When the smoke finally clears, Gong Chung is left slumped against the cracked wall, out cold and bleeding heavily. Instantly, the entire courtyard falls dead silent, save for the terrified whimpers of students dropping to their knees. Even Ma Long is shaking like a leaf, his brain short-circuiting at the impossible display of strength. Meanwhile, our hero just stands there perfectly calm, without a single drop of sweat on his brow. Pulling up his system interface, he confirms the absurd truth. Despite being stuck at level 1, every single one of his base stats is maxed out at a flat 100. He realizes his everyday state is already more than enough to absolutely crush low-level awakeners. With that kind of raw output, his true power is definitely sitting way above a pathetic E rank. But as he stares at the glowing screen, a darker realization starts to creep in. He just thoroughly dismantled an opponent, yet his experience bar hasn't moved a single millimeter. Yellow sparks begin to dance across his fingertips as he glares at Gong Chung's broken body, putting the twisted pieces together. Seeing the buildup, the onlookers frantically start screaming for him to stop, horrified by what he's about to do. But without a single ounce of hesitation, our boy fires a ruthless bolt of lightning straight into the unconscious bully's neck. His eyes glow with a ruthless red light as the twisted reality of his system sinks in. If he wants to gain experience in this life, he might just have to kill. Our boy violently hoists the last standing bully by the collar, yellow lightning crackling right through his grip. But before he can really let that electricity loose, a calm female voice rings out, reminding everyone they're still on school grounds. Enter Ling Yu, the vice president of the student council, stepping into the fray with an air of total authority. Flashing a smug, reassuring smile, she promises him that this trash won't dare lay a finger on him again. Playing along, he releases his grip, letting the terrified student drop backward into the dirt. Internally, though, my guy is just annoyed. He hadn't actually planned on frying the dude to a crisp. He just knows exactly how this academy's food chain works. If he doesn't establish clear dominance right now, these bottom feeders will keep crawling back. The ruthless display works like a charm, leaving the onlookers whispering in sheer terror as they finally put some respect on Sai Chen's name. Still, as he and Ma Long walk away, the crowd can't help but gossip about how these two are supposed to be the biggest losers in the school. Ling Yu just watches them leave, a calculating gleam in her eye before she turns to depart. Cut to later that night, back at the men's dormitory. Ma Long is practically vibrating out of his shoes, frantically trying to convince their skeptical roommates that Sai Chen has truly awakened as a top-tier lightning assassin. He wildly reenacts how Sai Chen literally rubbed Gongcheng into the dirt, but their roommate Xiang Zuo, an E-rank nucleus mage, isn't buying a single word of this hype. Leaning over to flick the poor kid right on the forehead, he argues that a real awakener wouldn't need to be out doing basic physical training. From his computer desk, the other roommate, Xiang Yu, chimes in to say Ma Long's brain must just be completely scrambled from his recent beating. Getting right up in his face, Xiang Zuo aggressively reminds him that the four of them only share this dorm because they are the very bottom ranks of their entire year. Manifesting a glowing red energy orb in his palm, he boasts that since the rest are just support chanters, he is the undisputed king of this pathetic room. Flexing his bicep, he mocks Si Chen's scrawny build while bragging that his own recent gains might actually get him into a club. Still glued to his monitor, Xiang Yu calmly notes that tomorrow's final rank test will expose the truth anyway. The comic cuts across campus to the E-rank training demon lair, where a massive fiery portal illuminates the dark. Stepping out of the flames is Student Council President Gong Ting, his pristine white coat splattered with fresh blood. He strides right past a row of bowing subordinates, casually declaring an end to the day's session. But waiting for him in the shadows is a heavily bandaged, thoroughly humiliated Gongcheng. The battered little brother furiously demands that the council president avenge his very public humiliation. Gong Ting just listens to the whining without a single change in expression. Then, with a cold, resolute stare, he promises to handle the trash that dared lay a hand on his blood. Later, over an ornate steak dinner, Gong Ting and Vice President Ling Yu dissect the incident. Slicing into his meal, the president questions if this mysterious student is actually as strong as the rumors claim. Ling Yu shuts that down fast, pointing out that Gong Ting has already recruited every single high-ranking awakener in the entire school. She smugly notes that without access to the guild-monopolized demon lairs, mediocre students have zero chance of ever leveling up. Yet while the elites feast on their monopoly, a lone figure is out sprinting through the freezing rain. Si Chen is pushing through a brutal 20-kilometer run, hauling a massive tactical backpack. Loaded down with 100 kilograms of dead weight, he knows that an awakener's hard upper limit is strictly bound by their physical vessel. But panting and drenched to the bone, he knows this basic training is still nowhere near enough. He remembers it clearly. In the year 2160, the colossal demon king Wrath descended from the sky and slaughtered humanity in an instant. It was that exact monster who murdered his sister, leaving him kneeling in the ruins with her bloodied body in his arms. And it was Wrath who tore open the gates of hell, inviting the rest of the demonic horde to finish the apocalypse. Back in the present, our hero channels that agonizing trauma into a singular, vengeful focus. He has one ultimate goal: kill Wrath. With exactly 3 years on the clock until the descent, he knows he has to grow exponentially faster than the Demon King himself. But suddenly his phone vibrates in the freezing rain, flashing an incoming call from Si Yun. Trembling, he taps his earbud to answer. Instantly, his sister's cheerful voice floods his ears, complaining that her battery died right after a competition. As she happily chatters about winning enough prize money to cover their rent, Si Chen remembers begging the heavens for exactly this second chance. Noticing his heavy silence, she pauses to ask if it's raining where he is. A gentle smile finally breaks across his face as he softly reassures her. Tears mix with the downpour as he admits it's just been way too long since he heard her voice, knowing deep down he'd gladly fall back into hell to protect this moment. Confused by the sudden heavy emotion, she gently says goodbye and hangs up, completely oblivious to the 10-year apocalyptic gap her brother just crossed. Wiping the rain and tears from his face, his resolve instantly hardens into cold steel. He immediately launches into 3 more grueling laps, pushing his limits with a desperate need to get strong enough to protect this new life. 8 hours later, Si Chen finally slips back into his dark, quiet dorm room. Washing off the grime in the shower, he takes stock of this younger, significantly weaker body. But as he towels off, his focus is already shifting to the massive roadblock standing in his way. He knows that to level up, he has to enter the demon lairs, but in this era, those zones are strictly monopolized by the elite guilds. Flopping back onto his bed, he tries to figure out how a supposed nobody is going to bypass that rigged system to hunt monsters. Even more pressing, he still doesn't understand the true nature of his newly awakened power of gluttony. Right on cue, a system prompt abruptly boots up, violently yanking his awareness straight into a blood-red digital void. He plummets through the data stream, sticking a crouched landing right in the center of his own mental landscape. And as he straightens up in a shallow pool of crimson liquid, he finds himself staring in sheer awe at a colossal, ominous tower looming inside his own soul. He was just trying to catch some sleep, but standing completely alone in its shadow, he realizes this gluttony system is hiding secrets way darker than he ever bargained for. Si-Chen stares at the massive, organic-looking tower looming over this strange pink void, wondering what the hell it actually is. But his sightseeing is cut short by a guttural growl, right as a pack of E-rank deathhounds materializes in the wasteland. The second he realizes he might have just been sucked into a literal demon lair, our boy's system kicks into gear and initiates a class switch. Yellow electricity instantly crackles around his hands as he loads up his Lightning Assassin class, deciding to put his questions on hold and deal with the immediate threat first. Right on cue, the skeletal hounds roar and charge straight for him. But my guy just dashes right past the front line, swinging a condensed blade of lightning that slices the first monster cleanly in half. The beast's skull shatters into bloody pieces, instantly triggering a system notification with his dropped loot. Unleashing a brutal flurry of electric strikes and kicks, he proves that with his maxed out past life stats, wiping the floor with these E-rank mobs is absolute child's play. He finishes off the rest of the pack in seconds, watching the sweet experience points roll in and confirming this definitely isn't a dream. He instantly hits level 2, absolutely thrilled by the realization that he can actually grind for experience in this bizarre digital space. A quick glance at his updated status window shows that every single one of his attributes just jumped by a solid 5 points. A confident smirk spreads across our hero's face as the truth clicks. He hasn't just awakened a system, he's scored an exclusive, private demon lair to solo raid. Suddenly, a massive E-rank boss, the Death Forest King, looms up behind him to crash the party. As the skeletal hound unleashes a scorching blast of yellow energy, the assassin doesn't even flinch, deciding this is the perfect punching bag to test his limits. With a single, devastating swing of his lightning blade, he slices the beast clean in half, instantly securing the victory and a massive chunk of EXP. He hits level 3 in record time, highly satisfied with how much more generous a boss's yield is compared to the trash mobs. But as he stands over the defeated monster, a strange new system prompt hovers directly above its remains. Si-Chen blinks, caught completely off guard. The floating text simply labels the corpse as devourable. Curious, he reaches out his hand, letting a strange energy gather in his palm. Staring at the intense glow, it hits him. This has to be the true function of his gluttony power. Suddenly, a massive red vortex erupts from his outstretched arm, violently sucking the dead boss's essence straight into the void. He clenches his fist as the devouring process finishes, residual energy crackling between his fingers. To his absolute shock, the system converts the absorbed monster into a literal stat card, permanently boosting his attributes and handing him a brand new Frost Physique skill. Flipping the glowing card, our boy realizes the absolutely broken truth of his system. He can literally turn his slain enemies into equipable classes. As that sinks in, his eyes go wide, a terrifying connection finally clicking into place. He remembers it clearly. This wasn't just some rare hidden skill. This was the exact same apocalyptic power wielded by Demon King Lanyu in the original timeline. Bathed in the blood-red glow of his own soul, Si-Chen realized he had just hijacked the ultimate villain's legendary cheat code for himself. In this world, it was an absolute, unchangeable law of nature that an awakener could only ever hold a single class. But by shattering that fundamental rule, he now held 2 completely different classes at the exact same time. He knew right then that if he just kept devouring monsters, his scaling potential was literally infinite. Back in the present, the initial hype wears off, leaving him with a cold, lingering question. Why exactly was he handed this apocalyptic power? He looks back up at the massive demonic tower looming over the void, wondering what kind of nightmare secrets it holds. But without warning, an overwhelming, crushing pressure slams into him from above. Sweating and straining against the invisible gravity, our hero struggles to even lift his head to find the source of the terrifying force. Down at the base of the tower, a dark, armored figure radiating immense purple energy steps from the shadows, casually dropping that it has been waiting for him for a very long time. The towering entity locks its glowing blue eyes on him, its voice echoing across the void as it addresses Si-Chen directly by his actual name. But before the young man can even process that, the monster unleashes a devastating shockwave that blasts him high into the air. He crashes violently into the red dirt, tumbling head over heels across the wasteland while desperately gripping his glowing dagger. Bruised and panting, reality hits him hard. Despite nearly dying to reach the peak in his past life, his current combat power is barely D rank. And to make matters worse, the nightmare standing before him is radiating the unmistakable, crushing aura of an S-rank boss. The math just isn't adding up for him. Why the hell is an S-rank monster lurking in this beginner lair, and how does it know exactly who he is? He barely dodges another heavy downward swing, realizing mid-evasion that they've exchanged dozens of blows and the beast has had countless opportunities to end him. Instead, the armored figure follows up with a brutal upward slash, sending my guy flying backward in a shower of yellow sparks. Hitting the dirt again, he notes that every single strike has intentionally avoided his vitals. It's just effortlessly knocking him down. The monster just watches him squirm, its skeletal jaw shifting as it casually taunts his futile efforts to fight back. Wiping the blood from his mouth, Sai Chen finally pieces it together. The boss doesn't want him dead, it wants him to submit. Seizing the moment, the dark figure offers him a twisted deal. A rare opportunity to survive, on the condition that he stays right here to guard the demonic tower alongside it. But Sai Chen isn't about to play guard dog, spitting the twisted deal right back in its face as he refuses to ever be trapped in this hellhole. That rejection earns him an instant, brutal response. A vertical beam of purple energy tears straight down his side in a massive spray of blood. He stumbles back, his eyes wide in absolute shock at the sudden searing pain. Leveling its glowing blade, the beast bluntly states that the only reason he isn't dead yet is because he's the only human capable of stepping foot in this realm. As he bleeds out, Si Chen watches that same ominous purple energy start swirling around the massive monster skulls littering the wasteland. Worse, the dark figure is actively buffing its stats now, its strength and stamina surging as it lays down one final ultimatum. It effortlessly rips giant boulders right out of the earth, hoisting them high into the air with a promise to crush him into pulp if he doesn't submit. Yet instead of bowing, his eyes flare a piercing yellow as raw, crackling lightning erupts around his battered frame. Channeling every ounce of that electricity, he launches himself straight at the boss, screaming that his only choice is a fight to the death. Unfazed, the armored titan scoffs at the D-Rank's desperation, dismissing the charge as completely ridiculous. Sparks violently explode across the void as Si Chen's lightning slams head-on into a massive wave of the monster's purple aura. Pushing through the blast to close the gap, he charges right into the danger zone as the boss raises its heavy sword high for a devastating downward execution. But our boy isn't just rushing in blindly. Those glowing yellow eyes are locked on the target, having already downloaded its entire attack pattern during the clash. He knows the Titan has exactly a 0.4 second windup before every swing, giving him just enough time to read the angle of the blade. So when that massive, cross-shaped purple slash finally drops, he effortlessly sidesteps the execution. And that's when he makes his move, winding up a crackling fist to exploit the monster's 0.2 second recovery lag. Spotting a critical opening right through the tattered cloak, he aims dead center for the defenseless chest. With a blinding burst of speed, he thrusts his lightning-infused hand straight into the beast's heart. The critical strike triggers his electric blade's hidden passive, instantly locking the S-rank boss in a state of full-body paralysis. Knowing damn well a D-rank can't actually kill this thing, Sai Chen immediately pops his Flash God skill to multiply his movement speed tenfold. He uses those precious few seconds of hard CC to turn tail and sprint across the barren red landscape. His target is a distant glowing white structure he clocked earlier in the fight, betting everything that it's the exit. Reaching his crackling hand out, he prepares to touch the pixelated beacon and finally dip out of this nightmare, only for the light source to just blink out of existence, leaving my guy stranded mid-air with nowhere left to run. Because that's when a chilling voice echoes from right behind him, shattering the mirage and dropping a massive bombshell. This digital wasteland isn't a demon lair at all. The dark aura swirls into a jagged, mocking maw, genuinely amused that Sai Chen managed to spot the flaws in its attack so quickly. Shedding its armored disguise, the nightmare finally reveals its true, terrifying form, the S-rank Purgatory Rakshasa, and cryptically declares that Si Chen is the only one who can bring them hope. Our boy's eyes go wide as the realization hits him. He's seen this exact terrifying aura before. Rewind to the final battle of his past life in 2167, where he clashed blades with Demon King Lan Yu in a storm of golden lightning. During that apocalyptic fight, the monster effortlessly shifted between high-rank forms, taking the shape of a massive crystalline ice dragon. Then it became a horned titan of magma, dropping a devastating fiery explosion that forced our hero to brace for his life. A split second later, the Demon King mutated into a colossal, thorny plant monstrosity, sending the assassin leaping desperately out of the way. But before he could recover, a glowing, multi-armed entity in the sky blasted him straight out of the air with a devastating bolt of golden lightning. Back in the present, the memory burns in his mind, because out of all those nightmarish transformations, flashing back to that apocalyptic war, he faced one specific, heavily armored juggernaut radiating purple flames. It bore this exact skull-faced appearance as it charged him during their legendary clash. The memory fades, and the horrifying truth finally clicks for Si Chen. The system must have devoured his old enemy's soul, which means this surreal red-tinted digital void isn't some random dungeon. It's his own internal mindscape, and Lan Yu's consciousness is literally living inside him. Right on cue, the armored Demon King flashes a razor-sharp grin, praising the kid's mental fortitude and declaring him worthy of everything this place holds. Sai Chen is still reeling, sweating bullets as the sheer scale of this internal world hits him. But before he can fully process it, the beast's projection raises a clawed hand, manifesting a glowing red gem, the SSS-Ranked Key of the Void. Gesturing to the colossal fleshy structure behind them, Lan Yu reveals its true purpose. It's a prison holding the most ferocious entities he ever consumed. A system alert chimes as the artifact floats right into our hero's hands, accompanied by a grim directive to devour those sealed monsters and use them as fuel. Gripping the glowing prize, the young assassin narrows his eyes, demanding to know why his former killer is suddenly playing benefactor. The answer is pure, unadulterated vengeance. The demon explains that the other king slaughtered his entire kin to satisfy their own greed. Flaring his intense purple aura, the skeletal giant declares he's waited an eternity for payback, and that someone else was right about this human being, his only hope. That cryptic mention of another person catches our boy off guard, leaving him completely baffled about who the demon could possibly mean. Yet instead of explaining, the massive entity just points toward the towering prison, telling him the answers are waiting inside. Pushing closer, Lan Yu offers up the very last of his essence, demanding the kid take his power and make their mutual enemies bleed. Si Chen can barely believe what he's hearing, stunned that the monster who ended humanity is willingly handing over the reins. But the fading demon isn't taking no for an answer, his glowing blue eyes flashing as he orders the boy to throw open the gates, devour everything in sight, and become absolutely unstoppable. He warns the kid that the beast locked inside won't roll over as easily as he did. They are the most vicious, cunning entities in existence. But our boy has to endure it all, conquer every last one of them, and claw his way to the absolute peak of the food chain. The grind won't stop until he finally devours every single one of those remaining demon kings. With his final piece said, the monster's skeletal form crumbles into glowing ash, declaring that only a man with that kind of ruthless resolve is truly worthy of his power. And just like that, the system kicks into overdrive, a loading bar flashing as Sai Chen absorbs the raw demonic essence. A blinding golden aura erupts around him as the notifications roll in, officially bumping our guy up to level 10 and dropping some epic loot. Staring into the void, he solemnly accepts the torch, promising to carry the fallen king's dark will to the bitter end. The devouring process completes, materializing a brand new Purgatory Rakshasa card packed with broken skills like gravity manipulation and corpse-draining stamina, giving him exactly what he needs to make his enemies pay in blood. Suddenly, a loud voice snaps him back to reality, yelling for everyone to get out of bed. Our hero jolts upright in a lower bunk, completely disoriented by the sudden shift in scenery. Blinking away the haze, he watches his roommates hurriedly throwing on their school uniforms, realizing he's somehow back in his ordinary dorm room. Pulling open his shirt to inspect his chest, he finds his fatal injuries flawlessly healed, leaving him wondering if that insane power-up was just a fever dream. But a quick glance at his glowing system interface proves it wasn't a dream at all. The loot he bagged in that digital void came right back with him. He skyrocketed to level 10 in a single night, leaving him wondering exactly where that puts him on the official ranking scale. Before he can crunch the numbers, Zhang Yu shouts his name, snapping his attention back to the present. The blue-shirted roommate leans in with a teasing grin, joking about how someone was talking a big game last night about our boy becoming a total powerhouse. Across the room, Ma Long just stands there sweating, looking incredibly awkward about the whole conversation. Zhang Yu dramatically gets in Si Chen's face, demanding to know if he's actually trying to usurp his reign as the strongest guy in the dorm. Then he hypes up the morning's main event. It's time for the official rank test, and he wants to see what our hero is really made of. Heading down the stairs toward the school grounds, Shengzuo starts running his mouth, bragging that while the rest of them are bottom-barrel low E ranks, he's sitting pretty at mid-tier. He smugly lectures them on how massive the power gap between tiers is, claiming he could easily wipe the floor with 10 low ranks at once. The boastful roommate practically sprints toward the playground, hyped to see if his stats have shot up even higher since the last evaluation. Hanging back, Ma Long leans in close and whispers for Sai Chen to give it everything he's got, hoping he can hit D rank and scare the absolute hell out of their arrogant roommate. My guy just walks on with a calm, knowing look, quietly amused by the idea of only aiming for D rank. Sure enough, the moment they step onto the bustling playground, the official rank test ceremony is already packed wall to wall with students. The hype is immediately killed when a pair of aggressive thugs shoves a random student out of the way, instantly recognized by Shengzuo as Gongcheng's notorious lackeys. The white-haired lackey and the black-haired lackey glare menacingly at anyone in their path, prompting the rest of the dorm group to nervously suggest keeping their distance. Panic immediately sets in when Shengzuo realizes the bullies are staring dead at them and making a beeline for their spot. Through it all, our hero just stands there, completely unfazed by the approaching trouble. Then, right as the thugs close in, they suddenly freeze in their tracks, their aggressive scowls melting into absolute terror the second they recognize the dark-haired kid. Dropping into a desperate 90-degree bow, they scream out a respectful greeting to Sai Chen, calling him their big brother and leaving the arrogant roommates completely paralyzed in shock. Xiangzhu stammers in utter bewilderment at why these notorious bullies are acting like obedient dogs, while Ma Long just crosses his arms with a smug "I told you so" grin. Not even bothering to acknowledge the display, my guy just walks right past them, leaving the lackeys locked in their terrified bows. But that quiet exit is instantly cut short when a sharp voice barks out from the crowd. Student Council Officer Jiang Jian steps into view with an arrogant smirk, loudly confronting our boy over the little altercation he had with Gong Cheng the day before. Leaning in with an unhinged glare, the officer threatens him as a bottom feeder, gleefully dropping the bombshell that Gong Cheng is actually the younger brother of the esteemed Student Council president. Watching from behind a nearby wall, Ma Long and the rest of the roommates start sweating bullets, instantly recognizing the floral-shirted menace. They know all too well that Zhang Jian isn't just the president's personal attack dog. He's a D-rank powerhouse who could flatten an ordinary student without breaking a sweat. Completely oblivious to the fact that he's picking a fight with a literal regressor, the officer leans right into our hero's personal space, boasting that he can sniff out true strength from a mile away. And with a mocking smirk, he declares that all he smells on Si Chen is the pathetic stench of a permanent bottom feeder, setting the stage for one hell of a brutal reality check next time. He gets right up in our hero's personal space, barking insults to see if he'll flinch. He's screaming his lungs out, ready to throw hands over his boss's little brother. But before things can get physical, a calm voice orders him to step down. It's Gong Ting, the student council president, and surprisingly, he admits that Gong Cheng was the one in the wrong. He casually declares that wrongdoers have to pay the price, leaving his attack dog bowing in total submission. As the blonde powerhouse turns to leave, he throws one last calculating look over his shoulder, and Sai Chen meets his gaze dead on, locking in a silent, icy rivalry. With that drama paused, the comic cuts to the main event finally kicking off, the formal grade test ceremony. Gong Ting heads off to prepare, while Zhang Jian trails behind, entirely writing our guy off as a non-threat. But the field isn't the only place where tension is brewing, as the entire student body is being watched from the observation deck. Up in the observation room, a large man in a pinstripe suit asks Vice President Ling Yu if she spotted anyone worth paying attention to. Sipping her tea, she just flashes a knowing smile, predicting that today's exams are going to get very interesting. 1 hour later, the testing is in full swing as Si Chen's arrogant roommate Xiang Zuo gets called to the stage. He's practically vibrating with excitement, desperate to show everyone exactly what he's made of. Without hesitation, he steps through the glowing blue portal into the isolated testing chamber. Suspended inside is the core of the exam, a chained-up demon heart designed to absorb raw power. Not holding anything back, Zhangzuo unleashes a huge blast of energy straight at the target. Instantly, the heart drinks it all in, pulsing brightly as it funnels the raw output through a network of heavy cables. From there, the power is routed directly to the external servers to be processed into hard data. Moments later, the giant screen outside flashes his current rank, an E-grade mid-tier. Down on the stage, the evaluators log the score, but they keep their eyes glued to the board for the second reading. Out in the crowd, the students are already buzzing, knowing this next number is what really matters. Because the system doesn't just measure current strength, it calculates a student's true ceiling, their future potential. And for Xiangzuo, that ceiling settles at a solid C grade, putting him right on the radar for state sponsorship. But the guy himself is devastated, realizing his current E-grade standing hasn't budged in 2 full years. Ma Long steps in to pat his back, reminding him that the rest of their crew scored even lower. They cope by assuring him that D grades are practically a myth anyway, and there probably won't be a single one in the whole school. Which is exactly when the system chimes in with a D grade low tier and a B in potential, instantly destroying their little support group. The crowd erupts as the first D grade of the year takes a victory lap in front of the portal. And sometime later, another student breaks the ceiling again, pulling a D grade with an A in potential. By the time the 8th D grade is announced, Xiangzuo and his buddies are just sitting there, questioning their entire existence. Up in the booth, the evaluators are thrilled, noting that normally they only see 2 or 3 D grades in a graduating class. But all that rare talent is about to look like child's play as the announcer calls for the next tester. Gong Ting finally steps up to the plate. The students totally lose their minds, hyping up the student council president and the golden boy of the Imperial Guild. Yet while everyone else is busy worshipping the ground, the guy walks on. Our boy just watches from the back, unfazed. To be fair, the hype is somewhat justified. The school's all-time highest score is only a D-grade mid-tier, and this genius already hit D-grade 2 full years ago. As he steps into the testing chamber, he stares down the giant, glowing mechanical eye of the system. But instead of going all out, the guy actually decides to sandbag his stats, saving his true power for the graduation combat assessment to cause the biggest sensation possible. because even while holding back, he knows for a fact he's about to shatter the Academy's historical record. Suddenly, the system starts crunching the numbers, static glitching across the main projection screen. Up in the booth, the gray-haired evaluator nearly chokes on his spit the second he sees the color of the incoming rating. Then the official results lock in, a D-grade high tier with an unprecedented S-rank potential. The whole Academy collectively goes wild, shouting in utter disbelief at the god-tier numbers projected above them. They hail him as a literal legend, cheering that their president is the first person in school history to ever reach these heights. It's pure pandemonium as the realization sets in that their run-of-the-mill academy actually produced an S-rank prodigy. Frantically double-checking the readings, the evaluators scramble to report this straight to the higher-ups. Because an S-rank potential isn't just a local flex, it makes him a world-class treasure who's about to get VIP protection from the state itself. Throw in the fact that he's already the young master of the Imperial Guild, and this guy is guaranteed to dominate the national headlines. Meanwhile, watching the chaos unfold from a high-rise observation deck, two officials note the sheer volume of talent popping off today. The large man in the pinstripe suit, Principal Yuan Long himself, chuckles, assuming his companion only showed up because she already knew about Gong Ting's ridiculous score. But Ling Yu shuts that down real quick, casually admitting that the Golden Boy isn't the only reason she cleared her schedule. Because as impressive as the Student Council President's performance just was, she's actually way more excited to see what a certain dark-haired outcast is about to do. And right on cue, the loudspeakers boom across the playground, publicly calling our boy Si Chen to the stage. As Si Chen's name echoes across the playground, Jiang Jian, a student council officer rocking a loud floral shirt, gets right in his face. He maniacally warns our boy not to embarrass their dorm with another pathetic low E rank showing. Since his roommates Shang Zuo, Shang Yu, and Ma Long are all sitting at the absolute bottom of the barrel, Jiang Jian calls the whole room the biggest laughingstock in the university. But Ma Long isn't taking that disrespect, fiercely defending his friend and promising that Si Chen is about to blow their damn eyes wide open. Ignoring the barking dog, my guy just walks right past him and steps up to the testing machine. He descends straight into the glowing portal, dropping down into a chamber choked with dark, ominous cables. Anchoring the entire system is a strange, pale, fleshy entity staring back with a single massive blue eye. He reaches his hand forward, perfectly aware of exactly what's on the line in this test. Because the upcoming graduation combat assessment isn't just a test, it's a brutal meat grinder. To even survive it, students have to form squads of up to 10 members. And the one squad that manages to take first place gets a golden ticket, direct recruitment into the nation's top-tier Imperial Guild. Meanwhile, across campus, the student council is already stacking the deck, eagerly recruiting a low D rank named Yan Lin to their roster. With this new recruit locked in, Student Council President Gong Ting has officially completed his elite 10-man squad. Boasting all 9 D ranks of the year, they're already popping the metaphorical champagne, arrogantly declaring that first place is a guaranteed lock. It's the eternal law of this dog-eat-dog world. The strong huddle together at the top, while the weak are tossed to the curb. Speaking of the weak, back at the testing grounds, Ma Long is sweating bullets, nervously adjusting his glasses as he wonders what the hell is taking our boy so long. Because up on the massive digital display board, Si Chen's stat blocks are sitting completely blank. Seeing that big fat 0, the crowd starts cracking up, figuring the outcast power is just so pathetic the machine can't even register a pulse. Even Gong Ting's right-hand lackey, Jiang Jian, dismisses the remaining candidates as absolute trash, telling his boss they should just ditch this loser fest and hit up karaoke. The blonde president gives a bored nod, completely uninterested in whatever garbage tier the school's punching bag is about to pull. But the second these elites turn their backs, the testing machine's display board starts to violently glitch out. Static tears across the screen before it flashes a massive, blinding update, officially locking in Si Chen's base stats as a high D rank. The leftover students who just called him a joke are left staring in wide-eyed, jaw-dropped shock. And Ma Long absolutely loses his mind, screaming his lungs out and flexing on the haters now that his faith in his roommate is completely justified. Over in the elite corner, Gong Ting and Jiang Jian are absolutely frozen, their arrogant smirks wiped clean off their faces. But inside the testing portal, things are already going off the rails. The system detects a massive instability in the Demon Heart core and demands an immediate retest. Our boy just checks his interface, realizing that his raw, unswitched level 10 stats alone are enough to hit that high D rank. Curious to see how far he can push it, this guy decides to test the waters by equipping his currently weakest devoured class, the Infernal Death King. Instantly, the massive display screen outside starts glitching out all over again. The giant letter D distorts and morphs right before their eyes, officially locking in a brand new result, mid-C rank. The crowd completely loses their minds, utterly bewildered by a stat jump that shouldn't even be physically possible. Jiang Jian straight up screams that this is total bullshit, convinced the testing machine has to be completely busted. Even the examiners are sweating bullets now, frantically wondering if their state-of-the-art system is actually malfunctioning, which isn't far from the truth. Deep inside the core, the fleshy demon heart is palpitating wildly, violently struggling to contain the sheer volume of energy our hero is putting out. Seeing the machine hold together for now, Si-Chen figures it's time to stop playing around. He bypasses his electric job entirely and fully transforms into his S-rank Purgatory Rakshasa class, ready to unleash the absolute terrifying peak of his true power. The moment he does, a terrifying, monstrous purple eye snaps open in the void. The sheer pressure of it bleeds straight into the real world, instantly blacking out the sky above the academy with a massive swirling purple vortex crackling with lightning. Down in the courtyard, Zhangjian and the rest of the student body can only stare up in absolute, pants-wetting terror. They finally realize this isn't some system glitch, it's a literal celestial omen, the universe itself announcing the birth of a god-tier monster. Back at the console, the testing machine's display violently distorts, fighting through the static before stamping a massive, undeniable S for his potential. The head examiner practically chokes on his own spit, screaming in disbelief that they've just recorded a second S-rank student. Even Gong Ting, the untouchable golden boy of the campus, is left completely stunned into silence. But the flex is too much. The hardware simply cannot handle the sheer oppressive weight of our boy's existence. A critical system warning paints the screen red, flashing that his potential value has completely blown past the maximum load limit. Jiang Jian lets out a blood-curdling shriek of pure panic. And right on cue, the entire testing machine violently detonates with a deafening boom, shattering the observation room glass into a million pieces. Scrambling up from the debris, the panicked examiners frantically rush toward the wreckage, absolutely terrified that the overloading demon heart just vaporized their shiny new prodigy. They jump down into the smoke-filled crater, desperately calling out for Si-Chen. But as the thick dust clears, the head examiner freezes in absolute shock. The massive, fleshy demon heart that powered the entire machine is completely gray, smoking, and dead. The examiners mistakenly assume the core just burned out from overusage, completely missing our hero as he silently walks away. In reality, Si-Chen accidentally pushed his aura way too hard and literally choked the entity to death, and his power of gluttony didn't let the kill go to waste, devouring the machine's core to grant him the rank exquisite demon heart. Leaving the sparking wreckage behind, Si-Chen realizes he just scored a massive upgrade. He activates the new skill, his eyes flaring with a brilliant cyan light. Instantly, the exact power ranks of every single student in the crowd float right above their heads. He scans the terrified onlookers, taking in all the data with his glowing gaze. Locking onto Gong Ting, our guy discovers the golden boy has been hiding his true strength, a mid-C rank, which he considers mediocre at best. Meanwhile, back at the ruined portal, the coughing examiners officially suspend the rest of the day's testing. To save face, they publicly dismiss our boy's god-tier results as a simple machine error, telling the crowd to pack it up and come back tomorrow. But Ma Long and the roommates couldn't care less about the official cover-up, swarming the black-haired youth in pure hype while he just stands there completely deadpan. The wholesome vibes get instantly nuked, though, when Zhangjian aggressively marches up from behind. The floral-shirted lackey starts screeching at maximum volume, blaming our hero for frying the testing machine and wasting the student council's precious time. Annoyed by the endless yapping, Si-Chen's eyes flash a dangerous yellow as he seriously debates just crippling the loudmouth right here and now. But before he can drop the lightning, Gong Ting steps in, ordering his attack dog to stand down and show some respect to their new teammate. Zhangjian's jaw practically unhinges in pure shock at that word. Ignoring his broken-brained subordinate, the golden boy extends a hand, formally inviting Si-Chen to join his elite squad so they can lock down the highest score in academy history. Yet my guy just stares blankly at the offer, leaving the untouchable president hanging in dead silence as the chapter closes out. The crowd is absolutely losing their minds. Gong Ting, the top dog on campus, is personally extending an invite to our guy. But Zhangjian is internally screaming, knowing that if Si-Chen takes a spot, one of his own boys gets the boot from the squad guaranteed to sweep the graduation combat assessment. Guys have literally tried to bribe their way into this lineup, so what gives this upstart the right? Still, Gong Ting's word is absolute law around here. Swallowing his pride, Zhangjian slaps on a painfully fake smile and reaches out to welcome him to the crew. But Si-Chen instantly swats the hand away, dropping a flat, zero hesitation rejection. The entire courtyard freezes. Zhangjian completely loses it, screaming that they're the #1 team in the school. But my guy couldn't care less. Flashing a glowing red eye, he coldly tells the officer to shut his mouth and stay out of his way. Leaving Zhangjian literally spitting fire, Si-Chen just turns his back and walks off. The student body is in absolute shock. Nobody, and I mean nobody, turns down the student council president. Yet as our hero casually strolls away, the rumors are already flying. With a mid-C rank on the board, he's clearly gunning for first place all on his own. The crowd is absolutely eating it up, laughing at the top dogs getting publicly humbled and praising our guy's massive flex. But the student council president himself, Gong Ting, just brushes off the humiliation, calmly noting that our boy clearly has his own agenda. As the student body disperses across the track, the real fallout is just beginning. Up on a nearby balcony, an older man with a scarred face sighs in disappointment, having hoped the two prodigies would team up to shatter the Academy's history records. Beside him, Vice President Ling Yu just smiles, finding this chaotic twist way more entertaining. She knows exactly how a silver spoon elite like Gong Ting operates. To him, a public rejection isn't just a slight, it's a naked declaration of war. And she's dead right, because down on the field, the president's inner circle knows their boss isn't someone you just walk away from. Zhang Jian is still fuming, desperately trying to cope by insisting that our hero's C rank was just a glitch in the testing machine. But Gong Ting isn't taking any chances. Glitch or not, he refuses to let a nobody steal his guaranteed first-place finish. Smelling blood in the water, the sycophant officer eagerly volunteers to go teach the rookie a lesson, bragging about their secret combat experience farming the local demon lairs. The president just shoots him a freezing glare, asking if he really looks petty enough to order a back-alley beatdown. Yet as he turns to leave, Gong Ting casually tells his goons to handle their own arrangements, giving them the ultimate plausible deniability green light. He spells it out one last time. Whatever happens next has absolutely nothing to do with him. Zhang Jian flashes a vicious grin, perfectly understanding the assignment. 10 minutes later, he's already got his spies reporting back with some very interesting news. A white-haired lackey confirms that Sai Chen skipped lunch and walked right out the front gates completely alone. Thrilled by the update, Zhang Jian crushes a soda can under his boot, praising his luck. Taking out the trash is going to be a whole lot easier without the school rules getting in the way. Meanwhile, our hero is strolling down the street with his earphones in, looking completely oblivious to the massive target on his back. But my guy isn't just out for a casual afternoon walk. In his past life, a peak guild team was conquering a high-tier demon lair when they stumbled into an unprecedented nightmare. They came face-to-face with a glowing cosmic horror, the first demon king, Wrath. The entire squad was instantly wiped off the map by massive, multi-eyed tentacles, and the beast tore its way out of the dungeon to kick off the apocalypse. Now Sai Chen knows he has to track down that exact lair before history repeats itself, and to pull off his master plan, he's going to need a mountain of cash. Which brings him straight to the front doors of the Mithril Monster Exchange. He already knows this place is destined to become the country's largest material market in the future. It's the ultimate transit hub for awakeners to trade gear, making it his fastest ticket to some quick cash. He dumps a pile of sharp bone fragments onto the counter, leaving the male appraiser completely stunned. The guy demands to know where a mere student got his hands on them, but our hero casually brushes it off as a standard monster drop. Stepping up, the pink-haired female appraiser immediately recognizes the haul as Sangson's fangs, a rare E-grade item. But the male appraiser just scoffs, tossing the fangs aside and cutting off her explanation. Trying to cover up his own ignorance, he haughtily boasts that he only handles VIP clients and D-grade goods, or higher. In reality, he's just frustrated over his stalled promotion and a recent dry spell of high-rolling customers. Annoyed by this low-value transaction, he decides our boy isn't worth his precious time. He pushes the rest of the paperwork onto the newbie, Little Lee, and promptly walks away. She happily finishes the job, handing over a crisp envelope of cash. Checking the system notification, Sai Chen confirms a smooth 18 grand, exactly enough to cover his rent for now. But the rent was just the appetizer. Now it's time for the main course, and he slams a massive glowing purple greatsword right onto the counter. Little Lee's jaw practically hits the floor as the weapon's heavy aura fills the room. Stuttering in awe, she guesses the blade has to be at least a B grade, or maybe even a legendary A-grade artifact. Hearing that, the senior appraiser scoffs from across the shop, snapping that an A-grade weapon is worth a cool million and he's never seen one in his entire career. Right on cue, a sharp voice cuts through the tension, agreeing that the sword definitely isn't B-grade or A-grade. The snooty appraiser immediately starts kissing up to the newcomer, smugly assuming the boss is calling the weapon worthless trash. Instead, the boss in the blue suit adjusts his glasses and drops an absolute bombshell. This is an S-grade weapon straight from the Purgatory lands. That revelation hits the arrogant appraiser like a freight train, leaving him screaming in pure, unadulterated shock. Completely ignoring his dumbfounded employee, the boss enthusiastically grabs our hero's hand, treating him like absolute royalty. He personally escorts Si Chen toward the VIP room, leaving the once smug appraiser bowing in terror while Little Lee carefully hauls the purple blade behind them. And as they walk, a calculating smirk creeps onto my guy's face, because this entire spectacle was just bait. He was waiting for the man in charge to step out all along, knowing exactly who Qingji is and what he can offer. Staring down the massive glowing blade, Qingji asks exactly how our boy intends to handle this piece of equipment. Si Chen doesn't even blink, calmly dropping his asking price, 1 million flat. The exchange boss is completely taken aback by the lowball number. He quickly points out that an S-rank weapon is practically priceless. Putting this on the open market would trigger an absolute feeding frenzy, easily raking in tens of millions. But our hero shuts that down, clarifying that he isn't selling the sword at all. He just wants to lock it up as collateral for a 1-month loan. Qingji's mind immediately starts racing, realizing this kid operates on a level way beyond your average college student. He wonders if he's dealing with some runaway scion of a mega-wealthy family or a hidden genius masking his true power level. To sweeten the pot, Si-Chen promises to pay the principal back in exactly 30 days, tossing in a 10% interest fee on top. Realizing he's sitting on a goldmine of a client, Qingji immediately dismisses little Li from the room. Once they're completely alone, the boss leans forward to lay out a little deduction. With a shrewd smirk, he correctly pegs my guy as a graduating senior at the National Awakener University. And since the university's graduation combat assessment is exactly 1 month away, with a first-place prize of exactly 1 million, the math lines up perfectly. Leaning back in his chair, the exchange boss connects the final dots. He correctly guesses that our boy is already dead, certain he's bagging that first-place prize. But the fact that he's in such a rush to mortgage an S-grade weapon instead of just waiting a month proves he's backed into a corner and needs cash immediately. So, having read his new client like an open book, Qingji drops a bombshell counteroffer, 1.5 million in cold hard cash, right on the spot, and he's willing to do it at 0% interest, framing the massive handout as a simple gesture of friendship. My guy just sits there in silence, processing this sudden dose of VIP generosity. The catch is practically non-existent. The boss only asks for absolute confidentiality and the first right of refusal on any future trades. Internally, Si-Chen is seriously impressed, recognizing exactly why this man is destined to build the Mithril Monster Exchange into the #1 trading empire on the planet. He shakes on it without hesitation, knowing full well he's going to need deep-pocketed allies if he ever hopes to take down the Demon King of Wrath. A glowing mana contract seals the deal, and the massive 7-figure sum hits our hero's bank account instantly. But before he leaves, Qingji points out a tiny logistical flaw. What exactly is Si-Chen going to use for the assessment now that his giant sword is locked in a vault? As a bonus, he generously offers to spot the kid some high-quality A-rank or B-rank gear from the back room. But Si-Chen casually waves off the offer, pulling a second massive glowing purple greatsword straight out of his inventory. The sight of another god-tier weapon nearly gives Qingji a heart attack. By the time our boy strolls out the door, the exchange boss is bowing so deeply he's practically kissing the floor, treating him like absolute royalty. He's so thrilled with this new VIP connection that he immediately promotes the pink-haired receptionist to supervisor on the spot. Back out on the street, Si-Chen realizes he has one more crucial stop to make with his newly acquired funds. A quick taxi ride across town drops him off at his next destination. He steps out and looks up at the faded sign of the Herong County long-distance bus station. Waiting outside the terminal, the memories of the crushing poverty that defined his previous life start bleeding through. Back then, before he ever awakened, he worked himself to the bone doing exhausting delivery jobs just to barely cover rent. He and his sister Si-Yoon lived incredibly frugally in a cramped apartment, with her even taking on extra tutoring gigs to keep them afloat. She had finally received an acceptance letter from a prestigious international arts academy. But in a heartbreaking sacrifice, she quietly tore it to pieces because they simply couldn't afford the tuition. She gave up her only ticket out, choosing to stay by his side rather than become a financial burden on the only family she had left. Back in the present, our boy snaps out of the memory, anxiously checking his phone as the evening drags on. But before the panic can fully set in, a familiar voice calls out from the crowd. It's Si-Yoon, pulling her bright yellow suitcase and immediately roasting him for waiting at the wrong spot. The teasing completely misses him, because the second he locks onto her face, the brutal weight of his past life crashes down on his shoulders. Completely oblivious to the fact that her brother just lived through a literal apocalypse, she taps her foot and demands he grab her bags. When he doesn't immediately move, she leans in, waving a hand in front of his blank, staring face. Instead of answering, Si-Chen lunges forward and pulls her into a desperate, bone-crushing hug. He buries his face in her shoulder, closing his eyes as a wave of pure, overwhelming relief washes away a decade of nightmares. The tender reunion is cut short when she starts pushing against his chest, complaining that he's squeezing her too tight. Shoving her luggage into his arms, she brushes off his weirdly emotional vibe, assuming he just got rejected by some girl at school. And just like that, they hit the sidewalk, with his sister happily chattering away about her trip like nothing ever changed. Watching her walk ahead, Si-Chen silently vows that in this life, he will do whatever it takes to protect her. He grips the handle of her suitcase, a fierce determination burning in his eyes as they head toward home. Meanwhile, in a dark alleyway along their route, the pink-haired thug leader takes a long drag from his cigarette. He flashes a wicked grin, surrounded by a group of thugs armed with steel pipes and hidden behind face masks. They lie in wait in the shadows, fully prepared to ambush Si-Chen the moment he crosses their path. Meanwhile, deep in a dark alley, a small army of student council thugs is lying in wait, sweating over the fact that they might accidentally kill their target with these numbers. But their leader, Zhang Jian, couldn't care less about collateral damage. He's seething that a bottom-feeding E-rank nobody dared to disrespect him. He remembers the recent past, when Si-Chen coldly told him to shut up and stay out of his way. Back in the present, Jung Jin orders his masked goons to beat the kid half to death and cripple him just in time to ruin his graduation assessment. He flashes a glowing blade, hyping himself up as a top-tier D-rank cloud assassin ready to deliver some vicious payback. Totally oblivious to the hit squad waiting for him, our hero is just enjoying a peaceful walk home with his sister Si-yoon, who can't help but notice he's been acting a little off. The girl playfully pokes at him, guessing he's stressed about the upcoming exam since a stubborn blockhead like him definitely isn't dealing with girl trouble. Trying to lift his spirits, she enthusiastically quotes his own optimistic advice right back at him. Then she breaks into a cheesy motivational song right there on the street, doing everything she can to make him smile. Watching her, my guy smiles softly, touched by how perceptive she is, even if she has no idea that he's already awakened a system and their days of crushing poverty are over. He gently reassures her that he's perfectly fine, but Si-yoon just shoots him a deadpan look, fully convinced he's just putting up a tough front to protect his pride. Nodding to herself, she humorously concludes that her big brother is just getting old and building emotional walls, leaving him utterly bewildered. But before he can even process her weird logic, a huge shadow falls over the alleyway behind them. It's a squad of thugs, and they're thrilled to catch our boy cornered with his sister. Noting the total lack of surveillance cameras in this stretch of the alley, the goons start licking their chops, ready to serve up a savage beatdown. Too bad for them, my guy's instincts are maxed out, and he immediately clocks the killing intent creeping up his spine. One glance back is all it takes to recognize the foul aura of the student council gang, proving these idiots actually have a death wish. Not wanting to ruin his first family reunion in 7 years, he smoothly pops an earbud into Si-yoon's ear, telling her to check out a track he's had on loop. Blissfully unaware of the danger, she happily closes her eyes, figuring this is just her big bro trying to open up and share his feelings. And while she gets lost in the melody, our hero casually turns his back to her. He drops his backpack to the pavement, his eyes flashing a dangerous red as he steps up to hold the line. Thanks to his newly devoured perception skill, a slick system UI pops up over the approaching mob, exposing a pathetic lineup of E and D rank fodder. With the music blasting in her ear, Si-yoon remains perfectly insulated from the impending bloodbath about to unfold. Right on cue, the gang charges down the concrete with their weapons drawn, sprinting headfirst into a meat grinder. Because as the yellow lightning of his electric assassin class crackles to life across his skin, he remembers the grim reality of his past life in 2160, when he lost his entire family to the apocalypse. He spent 7 long, agonizing years clawing his way back from the dead just to see his sister again. And there is no way he's letting a bunch of street trash ruin their first day back together, launching himself forward like a thunderbolt. He meets the vanguard mid-stride, planting a lightning-infused kick squarely into the lead thug's face. The raw force sends the guy rocketing backward through the air, his weapon clattering uselessly to the pavement as his buddy freezes in pure shock. But our boy isn't giving them a single second to process the insane gap in their stats, winding up a fist supercharged with lethal voltage. He blurs into a yellow flash, tearing through the mob with a vicious flurry of high-speed strikes that paints the alley in fresh blood. Launching himself higher, he caves in another lackey's chest with a devastating flying kick. Suddenly, a giant, bandaged arm drops from above, swinging a massive fist down to crush him into the concrete. Without even breaking a sweat, Si-chen catches the colossal blow with one bare hand while simultaneously burying his other glowing fist into the next thug's face. The impact hits like a freight train, utterly crushing the poor bastard's features under the immense weight of his maxed-out strength. That kinetic energy explodes outward in a massive bloody shockwave, violently blowing the rest of the gang away like ragdolls in a hurricane. The surviving thug leader can only watch in pure terror, his brain totally short-circuiting at the sight of our boy's monstrous power. But Si-chen doesn't let up for a moment, instantly lunging forward in a blinding flash of yellow lightning. He obliterates another lackey's face right in front of the boss, painting the alleyway with a huge spray of blood. Then, with his fist dripping fresh gore, our hero slowly turns his attention to the final man standing. Sweating bullets and gripping his blade for dear life, Jung-di desperately tries to flex his rank, screaming that he's a top-tier cloud assassin. Yeah, well, my guy doesn't care about his resume, ruthlessly shutting him up with a devastating, lightning-infused right hook straight to the jaw. The sheer kinetic force of the strike sends the gang leader flying like a human missile. And before gravity can even do its job, Si-chen is already right on top of him, winding up another savage blow as Jung-di spits out a mouthful of shattered teeth. The gang leader violently crashes into the concrete, hitting the ground so hard it literally craters the pavement beneath him. Snatching up the dropped knife, Si-chen stands over the crumpled, bloody mess of a man and delivers a chillingly calm reminder. With his eyes flaring a demonic blood-red and yellow lightning violently sparking off his frame, he asks if the trash at his feet is entirely incapable of understanding human speech. Spitting up blood with every breath, the thug leader finally realizes our boy's D-rank test results were a total lie. But before he can beg for mercy, Si-chen violently grabs him by the collar, pressing a serrated knife right against his mouth with a promise to slaughter him if he makes a single sound. Staring up into those cold eyes, the bleeding man realizes this isn't just tough talk. A suffocating dread hits him as he pictures a massive, shadowy demon looming right behind the student, leaving him wondering what kind of absolute hell this kid crawled out of. With his right eye glowing a piercing red, the regressor demands the trash's absolute attention. He tells the broken gang scattered across the alleyway that he couldn't care less if they rot in the gutter, but if they ever dare to threaten his sister's safety, or even so much as appear in her line of sight, he promises to erase every last one of them from existence without a second thought. Dropping the blade, my guy turns his back and walks away, leaving the terrified leader slumped against the cracked brick. Meanwhile, safely away from the carnage, Si-yoon listens to a track on her earphones with tears rolling down her cheeks. She wonders why the melody is making her so incredibly emotional when she's only been away from her brother for a few short days. The singer's voice just sounds so unbearably lonely, prompting her to mentally reassure her brother that she's right here and she's always been by his side. But that heartfelt moment is abruptly cut short when her earbud gets yanked out, leaving her glaring up at her annoying older brother. That irritation vanishes in a heartbeat, though, the second our boy holds out a small red box. Flashing a warm smile, he tells Si-yoon he brought her a present. Popping the lid, she gasps in absolute shock. Sitting inside is the latest monoholographic drawing pen from the Draeger group. She immediately panics, knowing the high-tech tool costs over 10,000 credits, and demands to know where he got that kind of cash. As she tearfully offers to return it, he is driven by the knowledge of how utterly he failed to protect her dreams before the world ended. But not this time. Leaving a pile of broken thugs groaning in the alley behind them, our hero silently vows that in this life, he'll protect everything she holds dear. Later that night, back in the safety of their apartment, Si-yoon joyfully takes the pen for a spin, giggling as she sketches glowing holographic fish right out of thin air. Watching her light up, this guy happily slurps down a bowl of her homemade fried egg noodles, perfectly content just seeing her smile. Of course, her practical side eventually kicks back in, and she gently reminds him that they still have rent to worry about and shouldn't be blowing their budget. Unbothered, Sai-chen casually drops the bomb that he's already paid off a full year's lease in advance. When she stares at him in disbelief, he just scratches his nose and spins a quick cover story about striking it rich in a small business partnership. Naturally, she just crosses her arms, instantly seeing right through his terrible acting. But catching that genuine, carefree smile on his face, one she hasn't seen in years, makes it impossible to stay mad. Deciding to let his little secrets slide, she reaches out to rest a caring hand on his shoulder, gently telling him not to push himself too hard. Our hero just looks back at her with a soft smile, silently soaking in the warmth he's fought so hard to protect. Meanwhile, the comic cuts to a dimly lit room dominated by a massive glowing aquarium, where a grim report details Jongdi's catastrophic injuries. With 60% of the thug's body shattered by comminuted fractures, even the best healers won't be able to patch him up in a month. Gongting just stares into the blue water, admitting his surprise that his subordinate actually tried to jump Sai-chen and got completely destroyed for it. Ling Yu takes a calm sip of her tea, pointing out that Jongdi is definitely going to miss the upcoming graduation assessment. Yet the student council president arrogantly waves off the loss, coldly declaring that his elite team is better off without a useless burden anyway. That's when Gong Xuan, the director of the employment office, steps into the conversation, noting that Si-chen is fast becoming a serious problem. The director reveals he personally checked the internal test results to confirm the rumors. Si-chen is officially a C rank, making him the only student in the entire school ranked higher than the council president. Hearing that, Gong Ting's eyes narrow into a glare of pure, silent resentment. The director reminds his nephew that the Alliance's vice chairman is personally attending this year's graduation, meaning they absolutely cannot afford to let some random nobody steal the spotlight. He even hints that if push comes to shove, they might have to play dirty to keep the crown in the family. To patch up their roster, the older man turns to his niece, Ling Yu, asking the blonde vice president to fill the empty slot on the elite squad. But the student council president just flashes a cocky grin, telling his uncle to chill. He smugly reveals that he was sandbagging the whole time during the rank test, intentionally hiding his actual power level. As a massive shark in his tank corners a helpless little fish, the golden boy makes a chilling promise. Come assessment day, he's going to remind the entire school exactly who sits at the top of the food chain. Meanwhile, the comic cuts to 11 o'clock that night, where our boy is washing off the sweat of a casual 100-kilometer weighted training run. With his immediate cash flow problem handled, the regressor can finally start plotting out his endgame for after graduation. He can already picture the golden first-place trophy, knowing he needs to secure its 1 million credit champion scholarship to clear his massive debt. He also knows he has to honor his mana contract with Qingji to the letter, since he'll be leaning on the exchange boss for some major favors down the line. Now lying in bed, our hero calculates he's got less than a month before the big tournament, just enough time to grind out a few more levels. But the moment he finally drifts off to sleep, a familiar loading bar boots up in the darkness. Without warning, the gluttony system officially activates. His consciousness is yanked straight into that desolate, blood-red digital void, dropping him right in front of the colossal, fleshy tower. He marches straight up the jagged steps toward its ominous entrance. Pulling up his profile, our guy confirms that his absolute weakest class, the Infernal Death King, is currently sitting at mid-C rank. But his strongest trump card, the Purgatory Rakshasa, completely shatters the system's maximum load, leaving its true S-rank potential totally unreadable. Add in 2 more locked classes with completely unknown stats, and he knows he's barely even scratched the surface of his own broken power scaling. Reaching out into the dark, Si-Chen summons the SSS-Rank Key of the Void. It's the only item capable of unlocking the Magic Tower's gate, and he decides tonight is the perfect time to take it for a spin. The massive fleshy doors grind open with a deafening rumble, revealing a swirling cosmic purple vortex waiting inside. Stepping straight through the portal, the regressor's eyes widen in pure shock at the completely unknown world staring back at him. Stepping through the portal, Si-Chen finds himself in the desolate, snowy expanse of the fallen star wastes. But before he can even take in the alien sky, an invisible weight slams into him. The crushing pressure forces our boy straight down to his hands and knees. Gritting his teeth, he checks the environment stats. The surface gravity here is a brutal 10 times that of Earth. Worse, the exit door has vanished, meaning he's trapped until he clears the floor boss with a body that can barely output 30% of its normal strength. Right on cue, a massive glowing purple starry monster materializes in the snow, flashing a solid B-rank status. Pushing through the suffocating gravity, our hero immediately triggers a class switch, his hands sparking with yellow electricity. The system finalizes his lightning assassin form, maxing out his speed and strength multipliers as he stares down the starry beast. Without hesitation, the starry monster launches itself straight at him. It lunges with terrifying speed, forcing my guy to drop into a low crouch just to let the massive claws swipe empty air. Knowing he can't drag out a fight under this insane gravity, Si-Chen pushes off the ground and thrusts his lightning blade forward. The crackling strike connects dead on, but the system flashes a brutal reality check. The hit registers as a complete miss, failing to trigger any vital damage or paralysis. The sheer shock of the failed attack stops him cold. As the beast nimbly vaults right over his head, he realizes the crushing environment has completely tanked his speed and precision, rendering his assassin class utterly useless. Worse, the starry monster isn't slowed down in the slightest, proving just how insane the baseline monster strength is inside this purgatory tower. But our boy isn't about to just roll over and die, throwing a heavy, desperate punch that smacks right into the creature's flank. Knowing he needs raw power to survive, he instantly swaps his class to Purgatory Rakshasa, erupting in a violent storm of pink and blue aura. The system window flares to life, confirming exactly what he needs. A warrior class loaded with massive multipliers to strength and stamina, perfect for brutal close-quarters combat. So when the beast swings its massive starry paw down for a lethal strike, my guy just raises his newly empowered arm and catches the blow dead in its tracks. Then, with a vicious flex of his gravity manipulation, he violently slams that same paw straight down, shattering the stone floor beneath them. He doesn't stop there, rapidly multiplying the downward force until the pressure spikes to a staggering 600%. With his eyes burning cyan, Si-Chen realizes that in an environment already drowning in extreme gravity, the raw power of his strike is amplified by a full 60 times. He unleashes that catastrophic weight all at once, bringing down a massive pillar of pink energy that crushes the starry monster flat against the ruined ground. Screaming at the tower's horrors to stay out of his way, our hero detonates his tri-phase gravity calamity in super heavy mode, obliterating the beast in a blinding shockwave of pure destruction. When the dust settles, he's left gasping for air on the cracked earth, his hands stained with purple blood. He lies sprawled out in the center of a massive crater, completely drained as the system tosses him a single bone from the splattered remains. But the real prize hits a second later, dumping 12,000 experience points into his stats and bumping him straight to level 11. As he catches his breath, he runs the math on his class system, knowing that every star on a card acts as a direct multiplier for his base stats. His Purgatory Rakshasa form clearly packs more stars than his Lightning Assassin job, giving him a much heavier overall amplification. Yet the fact that a single B-rank monster just pushed him to his absolute limit proves both of his current classes are still hard-capped at that exact same tier. That's when a chilling thought cuts through Si-Chen's analysis. He stares at the purple sludge plastered across the crater and realizes the system never gave him the prompt to devour it. Worse, he scans the barren wasteland and finds absolutely no sign of an exit gate to the next floor. The horrifying truth starts to click into place. Suddenly, the starry sky tears open above him, swirling into a massive black portal that hums with catastrophic energy. Panic finally sets in as our boy realizes the beast he just blew his entire ultimate on wasn't the floor boss at all. The real nightmare is only just arriving. Because that portal isn't spitting out a boss, it's raining down an entire pack of those exact same starry phantom lions. Before he can even raise his guard, the first one lunges, slashing right through his exhausted defenses and drawing fresh blood. Then the rest of the swarm descends, tearing into our hero from every direction as he finally understands the Rakshasa's dark warning. This tower isn't just a training ground, it's an endless meat grinder of pure, relentless agony. The monstrous beast's attack burns into his very soul, a grim reminder that he has to endure every ounce of this torture to survive. And even as the digital nightmare fades, he resolves to push through the blood and the pain, determined to conquer the whole damn thing. Suddenly the assassin jolts awake, gasping for air as the digital wasteland vanishes. He's safely back in his real-world dorm room, completely unharmed, while his roommate snores peacefully in the next bed over. But as he clutches his chest, the phantom sensation of muscles tearing and bones snapping lingers, proving the system's simulated deaths feel incomparably real. Still, my guy isn't backing down. He knows there are no shortcuts to power, and this hellish road is only just beginning. By Friday morning, the entire National Awakener University is packed into the grand auditorium for the graduation combat assessment. The student body is already buzzing with rumors, whispering that the higher-ups from the Guild Alliance are actually coming to watch the teams form live. And that's not the only curveball, as the chatter quickly shifts to a massive overhaul in the assessment rules. Our hero listens intently as the crowd breaks down the new requirements. Every squad now needs at least 5 members, with a mandatory high E rank leading the charge. At that moment, Director Gong Xuan takes the stage, announcing that the official rank updates have just been pushed to everyone's wristbands. Instantly, the auditorium lights up with holographic screens as the students scramble to check their final stats and lock in their groups. The lists roll out, displaying a sea of standard D and E tier ratings across the graduating class. But one student spots a glaring anomaly that brings his scrolling to a dead halt. Right there at the bottom of the roster, Sai Chen is officially registered as a measly low E rank. The classmates sitting nearby stare at him in absolute disbelief, while my guy just gazes blankly at his own projection. Whispers immediately ripple through the rows, with everyone remembering how he supposedly hit C rank during the explosive test just days ago. They quickly write the old score off as a glitch, assuming the testing machine really was just broken, and instantly cross him off their draft boards. Si Chen takes the sudden ostracization in stride, a dangerous red glow flashing in his eye as the crowd dismisses him as dead weight. The schadenfreude is real, with the peanut gallery openly laughing and mocking how much he must be regretting his public rejection of Student Council President Gong Ting. As for the Golden Boy himself, Gong Ting just watches the humiliation unfold in dead silence. Meanwhile, in the employment office, Director Gong Xuan is already pulling strings behind the scenes. Turns out he's Gong Ting's uncle, and he's plotting to rig the entire assessment to teach his nephew a brutal lesson in power. The auditorium is pure chaos as the graduation assessment kicks off, with every student scrambling to lock down a squad. Naturally, the entire hall swarms President Gong Ting, begging on their hands and knees for a carry. The desperation is off the charts, with kids literally offering to be his dog just for a crumb of his elite stats. But the Golden Boys roster is strictly VIP, and his lackeys aggressively push the mob back to announce they've only got one spot left. Half an hour later, the dust settles as the successful teams lock in their glowing green wristbands. Yet over in the loser's corner, our hero and his 3 dorm mates are left completely isolated. Ma Long is sweating bullets, whining that they've asked everyone in sight and still can't get a single bite. Stuck at a measly 4 members, he realizes they might not even be allowed to step foot in the arena. The bespectacled teen just can't wrap his head around how Si Chen, the guy who literally exploded the testing machine, got slapped with the absolute lowest rank on record. Worse, the new registration requirements mandate a minimum of 5 members and at least 1 high E rank, making it painfully obvious to our guy that Director Gong Xuan rigged the rules just to disqualify them. He knows exactly what's at stake here. This combat trial is their one and only ticket to a decent future. He pictures the straightforward mechanics of the test, the number of monsters spawned in the Devil's Cave scales directly with the size of the squad taking them on. So having a massive group doesn't actually make the trial a walk in the park. It just means you're fighting a bigger horde, which means no one in their right mind wants to carry dead weight, leaving the bottom-tier students completely isolated while the elites group up. And as luck would have it, the 3 absolute lowest E ranks in the entire academy are all crammed into our hero's dorm. Suddenly, a rival student calls out to Xiang Zuo, offering him a spot on their squad and bluntly telling him to ditch his trash roommates before they drag him down. Si Chen watches the exchange, knowing exactly how this plays out. If their only mid-ranker bails, the rest of them will be left out to dry, automatically losing their qualification to compete. But instead of taking the easy out, Xiang Zuo firmly plants his feet, loudly declaring that he's not abandoning his friends for anything. The rival squad just scoffs and walks off, leaving him shouting after them to stop looking down on people. Still, that loyalty doesn't solve their math problem. Ma Long starts panicking as the clock ticks down, realizing they're short 1 member and nobody left is desperate enough to join them. Our guy just listens to the freak out in silence, his eyes flashing cyan as he puts the pieces together. He pictures the director of the employment office, Gong Xuan, a man whose surname makes his allegiance painfully obvious. It all clicks. The sudden rule changes, the deliberate suppression of his true rank. The corrupt director is abusing his power to crush anyone who might threaten his nephew Gong Ting's guaranteed victory. But if the administration thinks they can just quietly box him out, they're dead wrong. He triggers a system class switch right there in the aisle. Intense yellow lightning violently erupts around him, blasting back the nearby students as he fully equips his lightning assassin job. Off to the side, Director Gong Xuan and the head examiner jump as their earpieces scream with the sudden energy spike. All around him, the crowd goes completely wild, screaming at the supposed E-rank nobody to power down. Yet our hero knows exactly what he's doing. He's invoking a hardcore academy tradition that lets any student initiate a public one-on-one duel on the spot. The move is a massive provocation, a direct middle finger to the rigged rules, and the absolute fastest way to put his real strength on display. And he's aiming that challenge straight at the top of the food chain, Student Council President Gong Ting. Gong Ting's arrogant smirk vanishes as he realizes he's being called out, knowing his massive ego won't let him back down in front of an audience. Si Chen's strategy is brutally simple. Dismantle the school's strongest student right here, right now, and the top-tier free agents will be begging to join his squad. But before he can even launch the challenge, a voice rings out from the auditorium doorway, asking if his roster still has an open slot. He glances over his shoulder, completely thrown off as a slender silhouette steps into the bright light. The newcomer is Ling Yu, the vice president herself, flashing a confident smile as she casually drops that she's been a D-rank since middle school, and she wants in. The entire lecture hall erupts in shock at the offer. Gong Ting and his lackeys look like they've just been slapped, completely blindsided by her move. Even the faculty can't keep their cool, with one teacher actually doing a spit take at his desk. As she struts down the aisle, the whispers spread like wildfire. She's not just the vice president, but a foreign exchange student. Word is she's a super genius from the mysterious Saint He Kingdom, which makes her interest in our boys' underdog squad even crazier. But before she can officially sign on, Director Gong Xuan barks out an objection, desperate to stop her from helping an outsider. He points out that as a transfer student with no official rank test on record, her joining the assessment is a blatant violation of the rules. Out of nowhere, the principal teleports into the aisle, his massive figure radiating a glowing purple aura that startles a nearby kid out of his seat as he loudly agrees with the director. Gong Xuan nearly jumps out of his own skin, stunned that the head of the academy himself has decided to crash the party. The massive man turns to Ling Yu, asking why a short-term exchange student is trying to get in on their local graduation fund. Meanwhile, Si Chen is busy analyzing the newcomer, wondering how a known warrior-class powerhouse just pulled off a high-level teleportation spell. Unbothered by the scrutiny, the principal gently shuts down Ling Yu's request to keep the playing field fair, a ruling she playfully accepts with a dramatic sigh. Wanting to know exactly who he's dealing with, our boy activates his A-rank exquisite demon heart to scan the duo. But instead of stats, he's hit with glitching static and massive question marks, meaning their levels are so high his system can't even read them. Back on stage, Director Gong Xuan nervously jumps in to kiss up to the principal, loudly agreeing that the school's prestige relies on its strict rules. Taking the floor, the massive man reminds the entire hall that the National Awakener University exists to cultivate superclass talents and give them the best possible stage to shine. He calls the graduation combat assessment a decades-old tradition, framing it as a critical turning point in every student's life. Then his voice drops into a stern, veiled threat, asking how the school could possibly bear the responsibility if a student lost out due to some special factors. The words hit Gong Xuan like a truck, sending him into a full-blown panic as he realizes the principal knows he secretly rigged the assessment. Glancing over at Si Chen, the director figures it out. This whole grandstanding show is specifically to protect the E-rank underdog. Dripping with nervous sweat, the older man quickly decides it's not worth butting heads with the most powerful guy in the room. He shoots a look at his nephew, Gong Ting, reassuring himself that even if Si Chen gets to compete, he's dragging 3 weak teammates into a guaranteed slaughter anyway. So he bows deeply, saving face by laughing off the rigged requirements as a simple administrative oversight by the employment office. Throwing his hands up, he officially announces the rule change to the entire hall. Teams under 5 members or lacking a high E rank are now cleared to register, leaving the gates wide open for our hero's squad. Moments later, 4 glowing green wristbands meet in a triumphant fist bump as the system officially locks in their registration. His 3 roommates absolutely lose their minds cheering, unanimously voting our guy in as their captain. Watching from the stands, the principal leans over to Ling Yu, noting that her interest in this kid is way stronger than he expected. The stage is now set for the ultimate showdown. The strongest squad in school history, led by Gong Ting, clashing against Si Chen's crew of bottom-tier misfits. The principal is genuinely curious about which dungeon they'll dare to tackle, and just how many points they can actually rack up. But before anyone can guess, the head examiner grabs the mic down on the floor, announcing that it's time for the newly minted captains to step up and select their Devil's Cave. The rules for the graduation combat assessment are simple but brutal. Students have to squad up and clear an actual Devil's Cave. Points are handed out based on completion rate, with a perfect mob wipe netting 10 points, plus a fat 20 for taking down the boss. Speed is also the name of the game. Blitzing the dungeon in under an hour tacks on another 20 to the final tally. But the real game changer is the difficulty multiplier, where picking an E-rank cave doubles the entire score to a theoretical max of 100. Pull off the highest score and the whole team gets a golden ticket to the prestigious Empire Guild, while the MVP bags a cushy management spot and a cool 1 million credit bonus. Up in the stands, Ma Long and the rest of the class are already running the math, whispering that the school's all-time record is only 90 points. A run that required at least 3 D-rank awakeners just to survive an E-rank cave. Naturally, everyone assumes Gong Ting's stacked elite squad is the only team even capable of touching that milestone. Yet before the gossip can even settle, a system chime cuts through the hall. Someone has already locked in their dungeon choice. Ma Long stares at the holographic projection on his watch, his jaw practically unhinging as he reads the registered team name. It's our boy Sai Chen's squad, and the difficulty they just locked in is the completely unprecedented, absolute suicide mission of a D-rank cave. Shengzhou practically tackles Si Chen, screaming that their captain has completely lost his mind. Beside them, Xiang Yu just collapses onto the floor, cursing whatever twisted luck dragged him into a group with a certified madman. A system prompt flashes across their wrists, asking for final confirmation to join the raid, and the roommates are seriously considering hitting the eject button. Panic setting in, Ma Long desperately tries to talk some sense into his friend, reminding him that a D-rank is a literal death sentence. But our hero doesn't even blink, calmly telling them that he's already thought this through. The interface registers his captain's lock-in, leaving the countdown hanging while it waits for the rest of the squad to confirm. Yet before they can even make a choice, another massive notification chimes across the hall. Gong Ting's elite team has also locked in a D-rank cave. The auditorium instantly descends into absolute chaos at the sheer insanity of a second D-rank selection. Suddenly, the student body is absolutely eating it up, eagerly anticipating a front-row seat to a high-stakes bloodbath. But when those same eyes shift back to Sai Chen's squad, all that hype immediately sours into vicious mockery. The crowd assumes this bottom-tier team is just pulling a desperate, suicidal stunt to grab some cheap attention. Cruel laughter echoes through the stands as everyone starts taking bets on exactly how fast his teammates will abandon him. But amidst the ridicule, Ma Long just falls silent, studying his friend. He realizes our boy's expression is dead serious, radiating a heavy, unshakable aura he's never seen before. Remembering how Si Chen always had his back, Ma Long makes his choice and slams the confirm button on his wrist. Right beside him, Xiang Zuo sighs, figuring they're already dead last anyway, and locks in his own agreement. That leaves Xiang Yu complaining about being left out, insisting he's the actual boss of this dorm. Yet he enthusiastically punches the confirm key too, screaming that they might as well go crazy for graduation. With that final tap, the system chimes, officially registering the underdog squad for the D-rank Devil's Cave. Our hero looks at his 3 roommates, genuinely touched by their blind ride-or-die loyalty. He apologizes for dragging them into this suicidal mess, admitting he only picked the D-rank zone for one specific reason. He wants the MVP title, and since they're all in this together now, he promises they're going to tear through that cave and rack up the highest score on the board. But before the hype can even settle, a heavy footstep echoes from the auditorium stairs above, cutting right through the moment. Our boy glances back over his shoulder as a heavy shadow falls over the group. It's Gong Ting, glaring down with glowing orange eyes as he barks that the MVP belongs to him alone, and there can only be one strongest student in this school. Watching the confrontation from the stands, Ling Yu notes she's never seen the student council president look so intensely serious. The rivalry between these two heavyweights is finally out in the open. Sitting beside her, the principal just chuckles at their youthful fearlessness. But Ling Yu remains strictly analytical, stating that our hero's confidence is completely misplaced. She points out that while a D-rank cave offers a massive 3-time score multiplier, the difficulty is exponentially higher than an E-rank zone. Picturing the lineup, she's certain that his current squad of underdogs is far too weak to survive the trial. The principal agrees, noting they only have half a month left before the assessment begins. Knowing exactly how grueling the virtual reality combat simulations are, Ling Yu realizes a qualitative leap in strength is impossible in that short time frame. As the rest of the school grinds away in the VR rooms late into the night, she just hopes my guy's team can put up a decent fight when the real thing starts. A caption marks time until assessment, 17 days, and Sai Chen's team is already puking their guts out on the training ground. While the rest of the student body is comfortably spamming elemental powers inside climate-controlled simulation rooms, Ma Long and the boys are busy throwing up on the grass. Between gasps for air, they whine that endless dodgeball and wind sprints are completely useless for a high-stakes combat exam. But our hero cuts them off cold, flat out stating that at their current scrub level, all that flashy virtual combat is just meaningless theory. He lays out the brutal truth. The second they step into a real devil's cave and come face to face with a terrifying unknown monster, the sheer, crushing fear is going to completely paralyze their brains, rendering every single textbook combo totally useless. In that split second between life and death, the only thing that will actually save them is pure, honed instinct. which is exactly why he's putting them through this grueling physical torture. It's the only way to hardwire their bodies to react before they even have time to think. His eyes flash a dangerous red as he points out the rigged system, explaining that the privileged elites have always monopolized the real, private training caves. He pictures guys like Gong Ting effortlessly slicing massive beasts in half, using those exclusive resources to artificially widen the gap between the top dogs and the ordinary students. Those pampered heirs are literally handed the best gear and the safest environments to power level without breaking a sweat. From the second they are born, the elites inherit massive advantages that the lower class can't even dream of touching, leaving the rest of the world to scrape by in the dirt with absolutely nothing. Which prompts Shang Yu to ask the million-dollar question, what exactly are people with nothing supposed to do? Our hero looks right back at his exhausted friends and gives them their answer. They are going to enter the Imperial Guild with the absolute highest score. This graduation assessment is their one and only chance to shatter that rigged class hierarchy once and for all. And as he pictures the looming shadow of the Demon Kings, he knows it's also his best shot to rewrite his own doomed destiny. So he makes his squad a blood-iron promise right then and there. They are going to defy the odds and they will absolutely win. With exactly 15 days left on the clock, our boy is back in the Dream Magic Tower, throwing himself right into the meat grinder against those starry phantom lions. He immediately takes a vicious, glowing claw straight to the chest, splattering blood as the hyper-realistic pain tears through him. At 10 days left, the brutal deaths just keep piling up as he forces his body to adapt to the high-gravity nightmare. But the grind doesn't stop when he wakes up. Outside the tower, he's dragging his underdog team through pure hell, leading them on a grueling run until they drop. Then it's right back into the void, where his newly sharpened combat instincts let him finally strike back, carving into the cosmic beasts with raw yellow lightning. By the time they hit 5 days left, the real-world conditioning becomes absolutely extreme, with our hero repping massive weights while his roommates struggle to just stay conscious. All that suffering pays off with 2 days remaining, when Si Chen finally slaughters the Starry Pack and triggers a system notification, hitting level 16 as a lightning assassin. With just 1 day left, his face painted in his own blood, my guy stares down the void and declares that the real battle is only just beginning. On June 17, 2157, Assessment Day, things kick off with a chipper white drone officially announcing the start of the graduation trial. Si Chen and his newly hardened squad stand dead center at the front of the crowd, fully geared up and radiating pure confidence. Right on cue, the giant blue energy portals crackle to life in front of them, signaling that it's finally time to step into the fire. Meanwhile, outside the university's administrative building, the principal is rolling up with an entourage of very important suits. He steps right to the front of the group to warmly greet the brown-haired man in a gray suit. As the co-founder of the Empire Guild and Gong Ting's father, Chairman Gong Lin has naturally arrived to watch today's spectacle firsthand. Up above, the students crowded at the windows are already losing their minds over his presence. But their hype completely short-circuits when they notice both the principal and the chairman personally escorting someone else out of a white limousine. The door swings open, and a pink-haired man steps onto the pavement, radiating absolute authority. This isn't just some local boss, it's Carl Cavendish, the vice chairman of the World Guild Alliance. The revelation sends the onlookers into total shock. Seeing a Guild Alliance big shot in the flesh is a literal once-in-a-lifetime event. As the VIPs head inside, the realization hits the crowd that catching these executives' eyes today could instantly skyrocket their careers into the stratosphere. Over in the blue-lit broadcast room, the principal kicks off the official briefing. He breaks down the roster. Out of 28 teams, 23 played it safe with F rank, 3 stepped up to E rank, and exactly 2 locked in the impossible D rank. That last stat instantly catches the attention of Sigrid, the Secretary General of the Guild Alliance, who raises an eyebrow at the sheer audacity of these kids. She immediately questions if the school actually bothered to warn these rookies about the extreme danger of those upper-tier caves. The principal assures her they did, pointing out that since most of the student body is sitting at the lowest E rank, they usually struggle against basic F rank mobs. At that moment, the live feed cuts to an F rank cave, showing a student managing to land a solid slash on a basic thorn-tooth salamander. But as a colossal lord variant bursts from the water, the principal explains that taking down a boss requires a whole team going all out just to survive. The feed then switches to an E rank cave, where the situation is already a total disaster. A group of kids is helplessly trapped in thick webs. As a terrifying stag beetle spider descends on them, the principal drops the harsh truth. Every single basic mob in an E-rank zone hits just as hard as an F-rank boss. Realizing they've bitten off way more than they can chew, the trapped students completely despair at the impossible difficulty spike. Watching the slaughter about to unfold, Sigrid demands to know what kind of protective measures are actually in place for these kids. The principal confidently waves off her concern, assuring her that the students are the Academy's most precious resource. To back that up, the broadcast shows elite armed guards stationed directly outside every portal, ready to intervene. And as that giant spider lunges for the kill back in the E-rank cave, The terrified student slams the button on his wristband to forfeit, triggering an instant teleportation out of the danger zone. In a flash of red light, the failsafe yanks the crying team right onto a secure platform outside, leaving them traumatized but alive. Watching the monitors, Sigrid notes that despite these horrors, 2 teams still chose the even deadlier D-rank cave, and she's genuinely looking forward to their performance. The principal just scoffs, cynically replying that he only wants to see how many minutes those brats can last before they break. Sure enough, the broadcast switches to Sai Chen and his underdog team, trekking through the freezing snow of the D-rank peak of the Cloud Forest. It doesn't take long for them to spot movement. Strange winged silhouettes lurking in the thick branches high above. The system pings, identifying the creepy blue-eyed nightmares as D-rank ghost bat monkeys. Unfazed, Si Chen calmly warns his crew that these cloud-type monsters are notorious for their blindingly fast aerial dives. A second later, the beasts shriek and plunge from the canopy, initiating a deadly synchronized strike. He barks a sharp order for the squad to brace themselves. But thanks to those 15 days of hellish physical training, his crew is ready. One teammate instinctively leans back, letting the razor-sharp claws slice empty air. Ma Long doesn't even hesitate, diving straight into the freezing snow to avoid getting decapitated, while the third teammate launches himself high into the air, perfectly evading the final beast's swoop. The trio hits the ground, completely mind-blown that their bodies actually moved fast enough to survive a D-rank ambush. But before they can even process the victory, a huge, bloody carcass slams into the snow right next to them. Ma Long and the others snap their heads up in pure disbelief. Because standing over the mangled bodies of all 3 winged horrors is Si Chen, his lightning blade humming after he just solo-wiped the entire pack in the blink of an eye.